Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new episode of TVG Talk. My name is Paco Triviño and today I'm joined by Lauro Chapa.
Hey guys.
And today we'll be talking about the Sega presentation that happened last week, this past weekend. And we'll be going through some of the details, some of the announcements that they made, and we'll give you our thoughts on them. And to start this conversation, I'd like to point out the Sega Genesis Mini that they announced. I think that's so far exclusively for Japan. And there's a rumor right now that it'll be developed by TVGamers. If you're not familiar with them, they are famous for re-releasing many of these plug-and-play classic consoles in this form factors. In fact, they've already done 2 previous Sega releases. And the curious aspect is that this is the first time that Sega is pushing it from a marketing standpoint. And another curiosity is that it's the very first time that it won't include a cartridge slot. So it's already different in those 2 regards. And Lauro, give me your thoughts on the Sega Genesis or Sega Mega Drive Mini.
I think it's a cool idea given that the NES Mini and the SNES Mini were very popular. I think the Genesis is probably Sega's most popular and people's favorite console from them. So I think that doing this release with it's a good idea. I don't know if they said what games it's gonna include or what is the console including with it.
Well, they haven't mentioned the games,
Right.
but if the TVGamers releases, the previous releases are anything to go by, it'll have somewhere between 40 or 50 games, I would say. Perhaps even 60, but given that Sega is really pushing the marketing aspect, maybe they will go for higher quality emulation or ports, and maybe have less games, I don't know. But what I do know is that they've, with every release of these Sega classic releases, they always include more and more games. Now the big difference is that many times these retro plug-and-play consoles have games from the Master System, you know, the previous console, and also like really low quality like Chinese games or something like that. So I'm pretty sure that this console will not have at least the Chinese games. I'm pretty sure it won't have those this time around. But the Master System, I can see because they've done that many times in the past. And I'm pretty sure that it'll only come with whatever many games, like I'm saying, like maybe 40, and you know the usual suspects like Sonic the Hedgehog, Phantasy Star, Comic Zone. You know, I think that we don't have to go through all of them, but like there's like 30 or 20 games that are always in those collections. And maybe they could also throw in there some of their arcade classics like Altered Beast and like Shinobi, you know, the arcade games that Sega was known for back then.
Yeah.
And maybe throw in their 2 controllers, so I don't know if they would just go with the one and release the second one separately. I wouldn't know. Do you think that they would do something like that?
I think they should, because you know the NES included only one, right, and the SNES too.
Correct.
Yeah, so that difference was really noted by a lot of people, because I think this console is a good tool to reminisce of those times and show other people maybe games that they never got to play. So having 2 controllers is really essential, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. The Super Nintendo Classic definitely benefits from having the second controller from the get-go, like out of the box. You know, like the other time we were playing like a Street Fighter Turbo and you know, all these 2-player classics that definitely benefit from not needing to go out and purchase the second controller. Now, the other interesting thing that I remember, particularly the second model, the second Genesis model by TVGamers, had Bluetooth controllers, but it also had the option to use the original Sega Genesis controllers. Do you think that we'll be seeing a similar concept here, or do you think that maybe they'll go with USB controllers this time, or something like that?
I think they'll go with USB controllers, because I don't know if Bluetooth controllers are always the best idea for this. I know that it's more comfortable and maybe more portable, but long USB cables are a thing, and USB makes it easier to connect to maybe other devices and whatnot.
Yeah, actually, that last part that you mentioned is the most interesting to me. Having now essentially a Genesis controller for pretty much any console that you have. I mean, the clone controllers already exist. They're everywhere. I mean, 8-bit though has made a huge business out of retro clones.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, I definitely agree with you that they should go USB. I'm totally with you there. Bluetooth, I think that would only raise the price of the console and kind of miss the point. And if they go infrared, like, forget about it. Don't do wireless. No. Which, by the way, now that I'm remembering correctly, the wireless controllers on the Genesis were probably infrared, not Bluetooth. So yeah, there were some complaints about the quality of those things.
Sure.
And yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Do you think that we might be seeing Sega CD and 32X games? Or do you think that they'll stick it to just regular Genesis games? I'm sorry.
Well, I think that with regular Genesis games, they will be set. But including games from those other consoles will be good. Especially because I don't think that they'll release those other console mini versions. So including them here would be really good.
Yeah, I agree with you that it would be a plus. Now, the thing with like whether they would include them or not, I think that the NES and Super NES are difficult to compare with because they never really had those add-ons that were basically like the 2.5 or I mean the 1.5 or 1.7 versions of these systems. Like they got the revisions, the Super Nintendo had the Satellaview, but never really that like add-on that was pretty much essential to this huge library of games. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that, or if they'll do it at all. Like you are saying, like maybe they won't. But I think that it's interesting to see what they'll do with them because some of those games are very obscure and sometimes the companies take this opportunity to basically put them on the spotlight.
Yeah.
For example, Knuckles Chaotix, a game for the 32X, I'm pretty sure has never been digitally re-released. Like if you want to play it on official hardware, you have to go all the way back to the 32X, which who will do that in 2018, right? So yeah, it's interesting how they'll handle it. I somehow suspect that we're more likely to see Master System games than Sega CD games, but oh well.
Right.
So yeah, and do you think that they'll, whatever shape the controller takes in terms of wireless or USB or Genesis, do you think that we'll be seeing the original models or the 6-button controllers?
I think people regard the 6-button controllers as the definitive edition. Maybe they could include 1-on-1, but that could be kind of weird. So I'll go for the 6-button. Yeah,
right. Because, for example, if any version of Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat makes it to the system, which by the way the ad games systems have, that would pose a problem because then you have to hit start to change punches and kicks, and that's really weird. Not acceptable today. So yeah, I agree with you. They should definitely go with 6 buttons. And well, I guess that could lead us to our next point about the presentation, the announcements that they made. and they announced a remaster, I guess, of Shenmue 1 and 2 for the PlayStation 4. Now, to kind of recap, they have basically only upscaled them. I think that they updated the textures maybe, but outside of that, the graphics, the polygon count and everything, it's exactly the same from what I could gather. What do you think about that presentation that they've made, or that decision that they made with Shenmue's remaster?
Well, I don't know if I like it that much. I think that the Shenmue games, even though they kind of hold up, they do need some touch-ups in some areas. So I don't know if that was the best decision of all.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I'm pretty sure that that'll bring the cost or the price down.
Right.
But I don't know if I wanted that. I don't know if I wanted this to be a budget collection. Maybe I wanted them to stand up to recent games, like maybe Yakuza 6 or something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I understand they probably wanted to also test the waters to see if people are interested. But yeah, I agree with you. I'm not a huge fan of them sort of grounding themselves to such a modest remaster. Another game that they announced in the presentation is, to not screw the name of the game up, I'll say that it's a new entry in the Sakura War series.
Yeah.
A tactical RPG series with elements of dating sims and other visual novel aspects. And I mean, it's very interesting. I'm not very familiar with this series outside certain YouTubers that have mentioned it here and there, and now with Sega. But I don't know. What do you think that it could? Do you think that it could gather hype as months go by?
Well, yeah, maybe it can. I'm the same as you. I haven't heard of this game as much, but reviving franchises that people are clamoring for is always good. So if they can, aim at their fans and please them with a new release, I think that they could.
Yeah, right. Like, if you can do it, basically. And yeah, I'm very interested in this new philosophy that Sega has in reviving series other than making more Sonic games. For example, I've heard a few good things about previews and stuff that they've made for Phantasy Star Cloud, I think it's called. Right. And I mean that game so far is Japan exclusive, but I would definitely like to see what that is like today, because Phantasy Star Online was a very interesting and dare I say revolutionary game for its time.
Yeah.
So maybe now with games like Final Fantasy XIV, many Dragon Quest, also Dragon Quest X, I believe, is online. So with these new online JRPGs, I'm interested to see how one of the original comes back and says, "Hey, I don't know, make a statement or something." So yeah, I'm happy overall, even if I'm not familiar with this game. I'm happy that they are reviving them, I suppose. It's the best way of putting it. And so, speaking of revivals, the final announcement that we'll be talking about is Sega Ages coming to the Nintendo Switch.
Right.
Now, for those of you out there that didn't know, Sega Ages is a compilation or a collection of games that Sega has put in the past from the Genesis, and they've basically been re-releasing them in modern consoles digitally for, of course, budget prices, similar to Nintendo's Virtual Console and the PlayStation 1 classics, so on and so forth, but Sega themed. And they announced that they'll be releasing these games for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. And they announced now that they're coming as well for the Nintendo Switch. Now, I believe that they've announced a handful of games that will be coming our way, like Sonic the Hedgehog, so on and so forth. So,
Yeah.
Lauro, what do you think about Sega Ages coming to the Switch?
Well, Sega Ages coming to the Switch, I think that it's good now because I think it's been on other consoles already, and to get more to expand the library of games you can find on the Switch is always good because people may say that, oh, these are old games or whatnot, but you really never been able to take games like this on the road. So any game that comes to the Switch, I think it's always a good thing because it's a new experience for you because the gaming system is so different.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Taking classic games on the go is such a novel concept to me. The 3D classics, the Virtual Console, the arcade archives, everything that the 3DS, the Switch have had in terms of classic games makes it so awesome. Like, this game that I grew up with and it wasn't this shining system is now on the go with me. That's such a novel concept to me. And of course now with the Switch is not very intriguing anymore, I guess, because some of the biggest games are now on the go, but the point still stands. It's a cool idea. And I totally agree with you that the Switch, the more games it has, the better. And actually, I've had these Sega classics a couple times now. I have them on my PS3, on my Wii, on my 3DS. I think that for the PC, I would have to track that game down, but I'm pretty sure that I have Sonic 3 for the PC. But this is the very first time that, for example, I'll have Phantasy Star on the go. And now, Phantasy Star is an RPG that I really liked when I played it on the PS3, but I didn't finish it, and I didn't go with sequels. I think that partly due to the fact that it was on a home console. Maybe now that it'll be on a handheld, I'll be willing to give it a go again and go for the sequels as well. And of course,
it's gonna be a different experience.
Yeah, it's a totally different experience, and I think that those kind of games will definitely benefit from having that on-the-go experience, and also, the splitting Joy-Con aspect. Giving your friend a Joy-Con and play Sonic the Hedgehog 2, or Golden Axe, or Streets of Rage in 2-player co-op. I mean, it's such a cool concept that, in my opinion, makes it the definitive version of Sega Ages. And before we were recording, or before we started recording, you told me about Sega considering bringing Saturn and Dreamcast games.
Right, they were saying that if these games do good, they were gonna bring Saturn and Dreamcast games to the Switch, which I think it's great.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I mean, imagine bringing with you Crazy Taxi, or we were talking previously about Phantasy Star Online, or the Sonic Adventure games, all of these classics. It would be great, honestly. Please do.
Yeah. I mean, we should support these games that are gonna come, so that they know we're interested in the other consoles too.
Yeah, and I don't know if they've ever released a lot of Saturn and Dreamcast games. I think that they have for the PC, but very few of them. Like maybe I forget the name of the original Jet Set Radio. I don't remember what that one was called.
Yeah.
But yeah, those games. Oh my god, just imagining having all these games on the go. it's honestly a pretty novel concept. I'm honestly, now I want it to happen. And maybe they could do something crazy. I don't know if the Joy-Cons, I don't remember if they have a microphone, But imagine playing like Seaman in there or something.
Oh wow.
It would be
Yeah.
like bring your Seaman with you everywhere you go.
Right.
And well, an interesting discussion that has sprung from all this discussion about Sega Ages. You mentioned to me that people were speculating that maybe this marks the end of the Virtual Console as we know it.
Yeah, a lot of people were mentioning that they thought that with this Virtual Console as we know it, or as we knew it on Nintendo consoles was done. And I kind of thought of it too, like all these game companies are like wanting to bring their old games to the Switch, but not like Nintendo's not having an initiative to do this the way they were doing it before. I don't know what's the reason for it or what, but yeah, I think that the Virtual Console as we knew it is done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you that certain things have made me speculate that perhaps we won't be seeing it as we know it. But I'm not sure if Sega is the reason, because with Sega Ages, basically, well, first off, before recording this, I found out that Sega Ages is actually a series that has existed for a while, but the difference is that they wouldn't call them Sega Ages outside of Japan, they would call them something else. But yeah, we've seen Sega Ages releases, for example, on the PlayStation 3 and so on and so forth. And also, like, while Sega did release Virtual Console games of the Genesis and arcade games on the Wii, on the 3DS it was a completely different story, where Master System, Genesis, and arcade were their unique 3D Classics line by M2, with the sole exception of Game Gear being Virtual Consoles, like proper Virtual Console. So, I don't know if Sega is the final like nail in the coffin of the Virtual Console. But I agree that with this new, like Capcom is releasing Mega Man and Street Fighter, and with Neo Geo releasing a ton of games, like I can't even, you know, and now Sega, like at least 3 really big companies releasing their games like this. Oh, and Namco. Namco has been releasing their Namco museums since ancient times now. So but now is Nintendo, for example, Nintendo actually released some of their arcade games through Hamster, just like Neo Geo. So it'll be interesting how they'll treat the Super Nintendo, the NES, and so on and so forth. I mean, it's crazy to think about that. And so, I don't know, do you think that we'll be seeing Saturn or Dreamcast games, or do you think that that's just Sega trying to hype things up?
No, I think we eventually will. Because I think people will back these games up and support Sega in this, as we've seen many of times with other companies that have declared the same, you know, kind of stuff. Like, if you buy our first games, we'll continue making more, and we've shown them that we do want more games on the Switch. So yeah, I think that eventually they will.
Yeah, I definitely hope so. And arcade games too, like bring the arcade Virtual Fighter and bring, you know, the arcade version of Crazy Taxi and all these games.
Yeah.
I mean, Sega, say what you will about them today, but they have such a rich history that bears, you know, reminding people, like, these guys were huge. they were like, you see Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo, well, Sega used to be up there. So yeah, let's remind people. So yeah, I mean, do you have any more thoughts about the presentation overall, perhaps, or some of the topics of what they released and announced?
Well, I'm so used to Nintendo Directs that I kind of wish that other companies followed that format and then made it like that. But I think it was a good presentation.
Yeah, I guess that this format is a bit slower, I guess.
Yeah.
It reminded me a little bit, I mean, not to the same scope, but the Nintendo Switch presentation earlier last year. It's very similar to that in that it's live, and you have the actual developers there, you know, with an audience and everything. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that for what they announced, Sega should have made a direct presentation or direct-like. Especially because you could see, like, some, how do you say, problems. Like, maybe sometimes the trailer took too long to come out, and the the announcer, I'm sorry, would be like, okay guys, so what's next? Like looking to the sides and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that they definitely would have benefited. Especially because they didn't announce like something ultra hype like Sonic Adventure 3 or a new console, like something that would really hype up the audience and they would be screaming and it would go viral or something like that. So since you don't have that, because the Switch did it for that reason, you know, to have the announcers snap their fingers and, you know, and have the audience reactions and everything, and the little gag at the end where, oh, where's Miyamoto and all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that Sega would benefit taking a page from Nintendo. Not that they're strangers to that, but yeah. So overall, I have to say, congratulations Sega, because you're honestly going in the right direction outside of Sonic, which is something that I can't exactly remember. When was the last time that I would have said something like that?
Yeah, right.
So, any closing thoughts?
Well, I was just surprised not to see that new Sonic racing game that was teased before.
Oh, you are totally right there. I forgot about that. Yeah, they didn't announce it, did they? I remember that going in, I thought, like, they'll totally announce this. But after that, I completely forgot. Like, my mind started going to handheld gaming and everything. But, okay, yeah. I guess that they'll save that up for a Sonic presentation or something, you know. Maybe alongside an update of Sonic Mania Plus and a new 3D Sonic and all that. Perhaps.
Maybe they'll save it for E3.
Yeah, maybe they'll save it for E3. You're right. They'll probably do that instead. Well, I guess that's all for this particular discussion. Thank you so much to you guys for listening. Now, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. We also have now a Twitch. I was gonna say a Twitch account. We're on Facebook, Twitter, so Instagram. So if you want to keep up with everything that we do, make sure to follow us. We'll leave clicks in the description. One day I'll get it right. Well, that's it for now, guys. Thank you so much. This has been Paco Treviño, and today I was joined by Laura Chapa.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Until next time, bye-bye, guys.